11th Deed, concerning the wife of Misdai. Chapter 134. After King Misdai had dismissed Judas, he went to his house to partake of the meal, and told his wife what had happened to their relative Charis, saying, "See what happened to the unfortunate one. Thou knowest thyself, my sister Tertia, that the man has nothing more beautiful than his wife, which he enjoys. Now it happened that his wife went to the sorcerer, of whom thou hast heard, that he came as a stranger into the land of the Indians, and she became enticed by his sorceries, and separated from her husband. And he knows not what to do. And as I was about to destroy the wicked fellow, he would not allow it. But go thou and advise her to turn again to her husband, and to keep away from the foolish words of the sorcerer." Chapter 135. And Tertia rose up immediately and went to the house of Charis, the relative of her husband. And she found Mygdonia prostrated upon the ground, resting on a sack and ashes. And she prayed that the Lord would pardon her former sins, and quickly take her from this life. And Tertia says to her, "Mygdonia, most beloved sister and companion, what disease has taken hold of thee? Know thyself, and return again. Draw near to thy numerous family, and save thy husband Charis, and do not what is unbecoming thy free birth." Says Mygdonia to her, "O Tertia, thou hast not yet heard the preacher of life. His voice has not yet come to thy ears, neither hast thou tasted the medicine of life, nor hast thou been delivered from destructive sighs. Since thou standest in the temporary life, thou knowest not the life eternal and the redemption, and without perceiving the imperishable communion, thou art tormented by corruptible communion. Thou standest here clad in garments which wax old, and longest not for the eternal. Thou art proud of thy beauty, which shall be destroyed, and considerest not the ugliness of the soul. Thou art rich in slaves, but freest not thyself from slavery. Thou art proud of the glory of the multitude, but freest not thyself from the condemnation of death." Chapter 136. When Mygdonia had spoken thus, Tertia said, "I pray thee, sister, bring me to the stranger who teaches these great things, that I may also go and hear him and be taught to worship the God whom he preaches, and take part in his prayers, and in that of which thou hast spoken to me." Mygdonia says to her, "He is in the house of Sifor the commander, who became the cause of life for all who are saved in India." Upon hearing this, Tertia went hastily to the house of Sifor to see the new apostle which had come into the land. When she entered, Judas said to her, "What hast thou come to see? A stranger and poor and despised and beggar, who has neither riches nor possession? But one possession I have, which neither a king nor a prince can take away, which is neither destroyed nor does it cease, which is Jesus, the Redeemer of mankind, the Son of the living God, who gave life to all which believe on him, and take their refuge to him, and who is known by the number of his servants." Says Tertia to him, "Let me have part in this life, which as thou promisest, all shall receive which come to the shelter of God." And the apostle said, "The treasury of the holy king is opened, and they which worthily take part of the treasures deposited there rest, and by resting they reign. But no unclean and bad comes to him, for he knows our heart and the depth of thoughts, and none can be hidden from him. Thou also, if else thou truly believest on him, shall be deemed worthy of his mysteries, and he will make thee great and rich and an heir of his kingdom. Chapter 137. Having heard this, Tertia returned to her house rejoicing, and she found her husband, who, without having breakfasted, had waited for her. When Misdai saw her, he said, Why is thy coming in so much more beautiful today? And why didst thou come on foot, which is unbecoming a person like thee? Tertia says to him, I am under great obligation to thee for having sent me to Mygdonia, for by going there I heard of the new life, and saw the apostle of the new God, who gives life to them who believe on him, and fulfill his commandments. I owe it to thee on my part also to recompense this grace by a good exhortation. For thou shalt be a great king in heaven, if thou obeyest me, and fearest the God preached by the stranger, and keepest thyself holy to the living God. For this kingdom passes away, and thy rest will be turned into sadness. But go to that man, and believe him, and thou shalt live unto the end. When Misdai heard this from his wife, he struck his face with his hands, tore his garment, and said, Let the soul of Charis have no rest, because he has struck me at the soul, and let him have no hope, because he has taken away my hope. And he went away hence perplexed. Chapter 138. In the market he found his friend Charis, and said, Why didst thou throw me as thy companion into hell? Why hast thou robbed me and caused loss to me without having profited anything thyself? Why hast thou hurt me without having any benefit? Why hast thou killed me without having life thyself? Why hast thou wronged me without having obtained the right thyself? Why didst thou not suffer me to kill the sorcerer, ere he destroyed my house by his sorcery? And he quarreled with Charis, and Charis said, What has happened to thee? And Misdai said, He has bewitched Tertia. And both went to the house of the commander Sifor, and they found Judas sitting and teaching. And those present rose up before the king, but Judas did not get up. And Misdai knew that it was he, took the seat and upturned it, and in lifting up the chair with the 2 hands, he struck him so hard on the head that he wounded him. And he delivered him to his soldiers with the words, Drag him along by force without regard to him, that his impudence may become known to all. And they dragged him to a place where Misdai was in the habit of judging. There he stood, held by the soldiers of Misdai.